A lot to do today. Beautiful Gemara. Today's we are picking up on Chav Dalet on base 24b, and we are picking up Rav Ashi Masli Lahad Rab Yitzchak, which is 2, 4, 6 lines up from the bottom. And remember again, we were speaking about the idea that when the cows, were pulling back the Aron from the Plishtim, ultimately again they were singing Shira. The Gemara was discussing the particular. I'm going to get to it. The Gemara was discussing the particular Shira, and ultimately again it was discussing again what exactly the cows said. We saw the various different interpretations of the Kapitlach of Tehillim, and we left off with a statement of Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said they said this tefillah of Roni Roni Hashita Hisnofafi Barov Hadrecha Mechushekes Berik Mezav Hamhula Bedvir Armon Farba Ade Adayim. So now picking up again, Rav Ashi Masni Lahad Rabbi Yitzchak Aha, which I will say is 5 lines up from the bottom Chav Dalet Amud Beis. Our shir this morning is dedicated by the Kozlovsky family in memory of commemoration of the yard site of Bernie and Harry's mother, Rose Kozlovsky, Rachel Bas Leib Fischl Zichron Livracha. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshama will have an Aliyah and the family in a Chama. So says the Gemara the following. Says the Gemara Ahad. Vahi bin Saron, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Hashem. Remember again, the pasuk says that when they would move the Aron, when the Aron would travel, Moshe Rabbeinu would go ahead and he would sing this particular tefillah. Vahi bin Saron Aron. So Yisrael, my Amru, what would Klal Yisrael say at this time when Moshe Rabbeinu was saying this tefillah? So Rabbi Yitzchak, Roni Roni Hashita. So we'll say Rabbi Yitzchak holds that this tefillah that was attributed to the cows who brought back the ark, who brought back the Aron from the Plishtim, ultimately was really said by Klal Yisrael when they traveled. Amarav, Kiman Karu Parsei the Safra Dvir. So we'll say the Gemara is just going a little bit on a tangent because we quoted some of these other individuals before. So now comes along Rav, and Rav says, why is it that the Persians call a sefer a devir? Where do they get that from? So the Gemara says, Mehacha, so he quotes over here the pasuk from Shoftim, V'shem devir lefanim Kiryas Sefer. That the city of Devir was known earlier as Kiryas Sefer. So literally again, the city of the book. So this is where the Persians get this idea of calling a sefer Devir. So the Gemara says, Rav Ashi Amar Keman Karu Parsai Nida Dashtana. Why is it that the Persians call a Nida Dashtana? Mehacha Kiderech Noshim Li. Because it will say ultimately again the pasuk, Bei Rachel Imenu Kiderech Noshim Li. So again, Dashtana is essentially a contraction of that phrase Kiderech Noshim Li. Top of Chaf Hamad Aleph. Vayidom Hashemesh. So V'yareach Amad Ad Yukum Goy Oivav. So also listen to this. The Gemara quotes the pasuk from Sefer Yoshua. This is talking about when Yoshua is going out to war against the various Canaanite kings. So what happens? The Navi tells about an incredible miracle where the sun stood still in the sky. Sun stood still in the sky, prolonged the day, so that Yoshua would be able to be successful ultimately again against the Malchei Canaan. So the Gemara says, my Sefer HaYashar, so remember, I'm sorry, Halohi Ksuva Sefer HaYashar. So it says, Vayidam HaShemesh, the sun stood still, V'yareach Amad, and ultimately again the moon stood still, Ad Yukum Goy Oivav, until we were able to vanquish our enemies, Halohi Ksuva Al Sefer HaYashar. This is written in the Sefer HaYashar. My Sefer HaYashar, so says the Gemara, what is Sefer HaYashar? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zeh Sefer Avram Yitzchak V'Yakov, Shenikra Yisharim. This refers to Sefer Bereshis, right? The Sefer of Avram, Rashi says over here, last of the widest lines on top, Sefer Avram, Hainu Sefer Bereshis, Shema'as Avos Ksuvim Bo. We'll say this refers to Sefer Bereshis, where ultimately again the deeds of the forefathers are recorded. Sheneh Amar, Tamos Nafshi Mos Yisharim. Because we'll say ultimately again by Bilam, Bilam says, let me die the death of the Yisharim. And I will say Bilam was referring ultimately again to the Avos. So we see over here that the Avos are called Yisharim. Bereshis is called Sefer Yisharim. The Gemara now is suggesting that the miracle of Yoshua, the miracle of Vayidom HaShemesh, ultimately is alluded to in Sefer Bereshis, Ve'echar Emiza, and ultimately again, where is there an allusion in Sefer Bereshis to this idea that the sun will stand still? V'zaro Yihyem Eloh HaGoyim. And ultimately, again, his offspring Avram, will literally fill the nations. Emasa Yem Eloh HaGoyim. When will the offspring of Avram ultimately again be amongst all of the nations? When the sun stood still for Yoshua, all of the nations of the world realized what was going on. That's when the children of Avram Avinu became famous amongst the nations. So the Gemara says, "Vayamor Hashemesh b'chatzi hashamayim, v'lo atz lavo kiyom tamim." So we'll say, so the pasuk goes on. It says that the sun stood in the middle of the sky. V'lo atz lavo, it did not budge, it did not move. Kiyom tamim, for an entire day. Vikama. So we'll say now the shaila is, how long did the sun actually remain in the sky for? Amar B'Shua Levi, Esrim v'arba shoy. For 24 hours the sun stood still. For 24 hours, I shouldn't say stood still. For 24 hours the sun shone. It shone, shined. Good, fantastic. Okay, the bottom line is none of you know English any better than I do, right? So you can pretend like you do. Okay, the sun remained in the sky. The sun did not set. So it says the Gemara. So we'll say what happens. So the Gemara now talks about the trajectory of the sun. Azal shis, which Rabosai means, meaning it went from the eastern horizon to the middle of the horizon for 6 hours. That trajectory normally takes 6 hours. Vikam shis, it stood in the middle of the horizon for 6 hours. Azal shis, then Rabosai, it began to set towards the western horizon. Again, remember when I say it begins to set, remember again, after midday, the sun begins its downward ascent in the western horizon. That took 6 hours. Vikam shis, and it remained 6 hours in that horizon, for a total, ultimately, again, of 24 hours of daylight. So the Gemara says, Kula milsa kiyom tamim. Rabbi Elazar says, no, shloshim b'shis. Rabbi Elazar says, in fact, the sun remained shining for 36 hours. How so? So the Gemara says, azul shis. So remember again, it goes ahead and it travels for 6 hours from the east to the middle of the horizon for 6 hours. Kam tresar. It stood for 12 hours in the middle of the horizon. Azli shis, it went ahead and it traveled another 6 hours in the western horizon. Vikam tresar, and then remained ultimately again for another 12 hours in the western horizon. Amidaso kiyam tamim, and therefore again stood still for an entire day. But of course, in this model, entire day means even more than 24 hours. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar Arba Mushmona. But Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani actually says that it went ahead and it gave light for 48 hours. Azal shis, it traveled 6 hours in the eastern horizon. Vikam tresar, and then it remained for 12 hours in the middle of the horizon. Azal shis, it traveled another 6 hours in the western horizon. Vikam esrim va'arba, and there Abba say it remained for another 24 hours. Shnei Amar v'lo atzlavo kiyom tamim michlal d'meikara lav kiyom tamim hava. So I'll say ultimately again, interestingly enough, so this last drasha, it understands that it began to set, but it began to set and it remained that way for a full day, which indicates that Lamaisikin beforehand there wasn't a full 24 hours. Okay, Ikud Amri Bito Sefta Pligi. But others say that what they're arguing about is the amount of additional sunlight. Rabbi Yeshua is the amount of additional light over a regular day. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Omer Esim va'arba shah. He says that there was an additional 24 hours of light. Azal shis v'kam tresar. Literally, it traveled 6, remained 12 hours in the middle of the horizon. Azal shis traveled another 6 hours v'kam tresar and remained another 12 hours. Amidasa kiyam tamim. Rabbi Elazar Omer, so we'll say, again, all they're arguing about is the duration or the amount of additional light on that miraculous day when Yoshua is waging battle. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Shloshim B'Sheish, right? Literally, again, it was for 36 hours. Azal Shis traveled in the eastern horizon 6. Kam Tresar remained 12 hours in bed in the middle of the horizon. Azal Shis traveled another 6 hours. Vikam Esrim Va'arba, and it remained ultimately again another 24 hours in the western horizon. V'lo atzlavo kiyom tamim. Yerushua bar Nachmani Amar Arba Mushmona. It remained actually again. It gave light for 48 hours. Azal Shis traveled 6 hours in the eastern horizon. Vikam Esrim Baba remained in the middle of the horizon for 24 hours. So what happens? Azal Shis, then it began to set for 6 hours. Vikam Chaf Dalid, and then it remained in the western horizon for another 24 hours. Makish Amidaso Lebiaso, because the pasuk equates the rising of the sun with the setting of the sun. Ma bi'aso kiyom tamim. I will say just like there was 24 hours from the eastern horizon to the middle of the horizon. So mabi also kiyom tamim, afami dasa kiyom tamim. Tana, Kishavos and the Gemara teaches another miracle. Kishem sha'amda lo chamali Yoshua, kach amda lo chamala Moshe ulanakdim ben Gurion. Rabbi said the same way the sun stood still for Yoshua, the sun also stood still for Moshe Rabbeinu and for Nakdimon ben Gurion. So let's analyze this. Yoshua, cry. So we'll say the fact that the sun stood still for Yoshua, so that we have psukim. We have psukim that support that. Nakdimon ben Gurion. Let's remember the episode of Nakdimon ben Gurion. This was we learned this incredible episode in Meseches Tainis. Nakdimon ben Gurion Gemara. We'll say that's the tradition. What's the tradition? Remember again, the story of Nakdimon ben Gurion is that there was a drought, a severe drought. He borrowed wells. And the way that they arranged, the way that the arrangement went, is that he promised that if he did not repay by a certain time, he would repay those wells plus some exorbitant, penalty fee. So remember again the famous story where it rained last minute, but it looked like the rain ultimately again had only come about on the following day. A miracle occurred, and what happened? The clouds dispersed, and it showed that the sun was still shining. So it was a miracle that the day was prolonged in the Schus of Nakdimon ben Gurion. L'Moshe Minolan, but how do we know that the sun stood still for Moshe Rabbeinu? Asya achel achel. Let's make a gzir shava achel achel. Ksiv haka, it says over here, achel sin pachtecha. It says by Moshe Rabbeinu, achel, I will begin to place your fear on the nations. Uksiv hasam Yoshua, achel gadlacha. So say just like by Yoshua it says achel, so too Moshe Rabbeinu it says achel. Just like by Yoshua the sun stood still, so too for Moshe the sun stood still. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Asya, taste. We make a gzir shava of taste. We'll say taste means I will place. Ksiv hacha, achel taste pachtecha. Says by Moshe, I will begin to place your fear on the nations. Ksiv Yoshua, biyom taste Hashem Amori. Rabbi Shua bar Nachmani Amar migufei to crush shamas. They know you can learn out from the pasuk itself. What's the pasuk? I will say, Asher yishmuun shamacha v'rigzu v'chelu mipanecha. Rabbi say the pasuk says this is in Dvarim. Asher yishmun shamacha, they will hear about, literally again, they'll hear about your reputation. They'll hear about your news. V'ragzu, they will fear. V'chalu mipanecha, and they will ultimately again, literally retreat from before you. Eimasei rigzu v'chelu mipanecha. When will the nations ultimately again be fearful and retreat from before you? B'shah sha'amda lo chamal Moshe. When they see that the sun stands still for Moshe Rabbeinu. When they see that the sun stands still for Moshe Rabbeinu, ultimately again, that's when they will begin to retreat. So you see from here that just as the sun stood still for Yoshua, the sun also stood still for Moshe Rabbeinu. Meisvei. So 1 second, we have a problem with this. What's the problem? What's the problem? Below Haya Kiyomahu, the fun of the Acharav, the pasuk says by Yoshua that after the sun stood still for Yoshua, what does it say? There will never be another day like this, before this or after this, like this day. Now what does that mean? What that seems to say is the sun stood still for, for whatever it was, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours, whatever it is, there was some type of luminary miracle, and the Navi says that there will never be a miracle like this. I should say differently. A miracle like this never occurred before this day, nor will it ever occur after this day. Which I will say seems to be a pretty explicit statement that what? The sun never stood still for anyone else. So at the end of the day, how could the Gemara say that it stood still for Moshe Rabbeinu as well? To which the Gemara says, Iba Isema, shows who having the fishi kolihai. So we'll say one answer possibly is, what it means is that there was never such a protracted miracle like this before. For Yoshua, the sun stood still for a protracted, elongated period of time. It could have been that it stood still for Moshe Rabbeinu as well, just not for as long. V'bai Sema. But the other possibility is, V'bai Sema, Ema Avne Bara Lohavu. Yoshua, not only did the sun stand still, but there was another incredible miracle. Which Moshe was what? A dramatically large hailstones that fell. Tichsiv, Vahi benosam ipnei b'nei Yisrael, Heim b'mored b'yischor v'Hashem hishlich aleim avonim gitolos min hashamayim ad hazeka vayamusu. That Rabbi say those enemies who were fleeing were stricken, right? We're literally, again, we're surrounded by a barrage of falling hail. So this combination of protracted daylight and falling hail, that combination was never seen before. It could be that Moshe Rabbeinu ultimately again did have the miracle of protracted daylight, but did not have protracted daylight coupled with the hail. Ksiv. So we'll say the pasuk over. The Gemara now quotes the pasuk from Shmuel. Vayomer lelamed bnei Yehuda keshes hine ksuva al sefer hayashar. And he said, this is David HaMelech speaking, and he said, the sons of Yehuda are proficient with the bow. It is written, this is written about in the Sefer HaYashar. And also, just to understand the context, this is after Shaul and his sons are killed by the Plishtim. So David HaMelech delivers this incredibly dramatic and eloquent eulogy for Shaul, for his sons, even specifically more for Yonah's son. So in the beginning of this eulogy, so in the middle of this eulogy, so David HaMelech makes reference to the fact that Bnei Yehuda are very skilled warriors, skilled with the bow. And all of this is written in the Sefer HaYashar. My Sefer HaYashar, we'll say, what's the Sefer HaYashar to which David HaMelech refers to? Amar Chibra, Amar Yochanan, Zeh Sefer Avram Yitzchak V'Yakov. This refers to the book of Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov. We'll say, what's the book of Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov? As we said before, that's Sefer Bereshis. We'll say, by the way, this Gemara is the Makar that Sefer Bereshis is called the Sefer HaYashar. It's called the Sefer HaYashar, or the book of the upright ones, a reference ultimately again to the Avos. Tichsev Behu, we'll say, but why are the Avos called Yesharim? Tichsev Behu, Tamos Nafshi Most Yesharim, Utiyachari Si Kamohu. We'll say we actually get this from Bilam. Bilam is the one who called, we saw this before, Bilam is the one who called the Avos Yesharim, and he says literally, we will say, when realizing that he is unable to curse Klal Yisrael, he gives in. Let me die the death of the upright ones, and let my afterlife be like theirs. The Hecheramiza. So we'll say, where is the proficiency of Yehuda with the bow referenced or hinted to in Bereshis? The pasuk says, Yehuda ata yoducha achecha yodcha ba'oref oivecha. The pasuk, because the pasuk says, Yehuda, you are known or you are recognized by your brothers. Your hand is by the neck of your enemies. Ve'izo hi milchama shetzricha yad kineged oref. We'll say, what is the type of warfare which requires a hand opposite the neck? See, interestingly enough, we normally interpret as the neck referring to Yehuda's neck on his enemy's neck. The idea the Gemara is dashing over here is that maybe it's referring to the fact that Yehuda wages war with his neck and with his hands. What's the warfare that requires the hands opposite the neck? Have Omer Zeu Keshes. I will say that refers to the bow. Right, that refers to the bow. Which in order to go ahead and draw the bow, you have to draw back the bow opposite your neck. So the hand is opposite the neck. So we'll say that is the scriptural allusion that Yehuda is proficient with the bow. Rabbi Lazar Omer says Sefer Mishnah Torah. So Rabbi Lazar holds that Sefer Yashar Bosa is actually Dvarim. V'amai karu luhu Sefer HaYashar. Why is Dvarim called the Sefer HaYashar? V'chsev v'asisa Yashar to b'nei Hashem. Because I will say Dvarim contains the pasuk that says, you shall do that which is good and that which is yashar in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we'll say, where do we see a scriptural allusion in Dvarim to Yehuda's proficiency with the bow? Because Yadav Rav Lo. And we'll say, interestingly enough, we would translate this normally as Yadav Rav Lo, his hands do war for him. And we'll say the way the Gemara is actually over here is Yadav Rav Lo, he does war with his hands, plural. What is the type of warfare which requires both hands? Both say this refers to the bow. This refers to the bow. You can't do war without the. You can't go ahead and work the bow without both hands. No, Sefer Yashar refers to ultimately Sefer Shoftim. So why is Sefer Shoftim called Sefer Yashar? Because also remember again, how does Sefer Shoftim begin? It was in those days. Actually, this is in the middle of Sefer Shoftim. It was in those days. There was no king. Ish hayashar be'inav yaseh. Everyone did whatever they wanted. So the Eicher so we'll say if Shoftim is a Sefer Hayashar, where do we see a scriptural allusion ultimately to the bow proficiency of Yehuda? Ultimately, again, generations of Bnei Yisrael will know to learn war. We'll We'll say what type of warfare requires a special learning and proficiency. Heavy Omer zu keshes. We'll say this ultimately refers to what? This refers to the bow. Uminalan debi Yehuda. And I will say ultimately again, from where do we know that this is talking about Yehuda? So every other pasuk beforehand was referencing Yehuda, right? Bereshis was referencing Yehuda. From was referencing Yehuda. How do we know that this sefer, this pasuk in Shoftim, which seems to be just talking about going out to war in general, is talking about Yehuda? Tichsev miya alelano betchila ala knani liilachim bo. Who will go out for war? Who will go out first to war against the Canaanim? Vayomer Hashem Yehuda Yala. We'll say ultimately again, it's Yehuda ultimately again who is going ahead and goes out first to war. Yehuda goes first. So we'll say the Gemara goes weiter. So we'll say now now the Gemara transitions a little bit. Excuse me. Now we're going to talk about Shaul a little bit. So we'll say, watch this. Good morning, Mr. Schoenfeld. Did you guys carpool? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, we'll say, we now quote from the pasuk from Shmuel Aleph. So the pasuk says, "Vayaram hatabach hasashok." So we'll say, remember again, we're jumping around a little bit. So Vayaram hatabach hasashok va'alya vayasem lifnei Shaul. So we'll say, listen to this. So the context over here. This is before Shaul is anointed king. This is actually talking about Shmuel's first interaction with Shaul. Remember again, what's Shmuel's first interaction with Shaul? It's a dramatic story. Shaul is looking for his donkeys. Right? His donkeys get lost. He can't find his donkeys anywhere. So what do people advise him to do? They tell him, you should go speak to the Navi. The Navi knows everything. Go speak to the Navi. He'll help you find your donkeys. Shmuel is in the middle of having a feast in one of the cities. And what happens? He knows prophetically that the future king of Israel is coming. So what does he do? He proactively sets up for him a makom michubad, a very nice seat, and he orders the chef, I guess that may be the wrong word. He orders the butcher to set aside a very special portion for Shaul. And so the pasuk says over here, Vayaram hatabach es hashok ve'aleha vayasem lifnei Shaul. He told the butcher to give Shaul the shok. Rabbi said the shok is the thigh, ve'aleha, and to place it before Shaul. So Rabbi said this is a very chashiv piece of meat. So my ve'aleha. We'll say, what does it mean, the thigh and that which was on it? Rabbi Yochanan Amar shok va'alya. It means the shok, it means the thigh, and the meat from the tail. So the Gemara says, my v'ha'aleha. So ultimately, and why is it called v'ha'aleha, that which is on it? Dimisamcha shok la'alya. Because we'll say it is the thigh which supports the thigh bone, the thigh and the bone which supports the tail. So therefore, again, Shaul was given the thigh as well as the meat from the tail. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. I lost the place. Rabbi Lazar Omer, thank you. Shok v'chazeh. Rather, what it means the thigh as well as the chest. My v'ha'aleha. So we'll say, why is it called v'ha'aleha? That which is on it. Dimachis le'chazeh aliyah the shok. Because we'll say it just means they put the two pieces of meat on top of each other. They had the thigh piece, and then on top of the thigh piece, they put the chest piece. So the Gemara says, Kiboy anufe umanfile. We'll say they piled it as one would pile it when they would do tenufa. So we'll say there were certain types of kavanas which required waving procedures. When the kohen would wave the meat, so ultimately again they would put the chest ultimately on top of the thigh. Rabbi Shlomo Nachmani Amar shok v'shufi. So ultimately we'll say Rabbi Shlomo Nachmani says that they would go ahead and put the shok and the shufi. So we'll say, so remember the shok refers to the thigh bone. The shufi ultimately refers to the cap of the thigh bone. My v'ha'aleha shufi iluyah the shok kai. Because anatomically, the cap of the thigh bone ultimately again lays on top of the actual thigh itself. So we'll say, good. So they gave Shaul this incredibly dramatic and important piece of meat. We'll say, ultimately, again, this was to be a metaphor for his newfound greatness within Klal Yisrael, that he was about to be appointed as king. We'll say, back to the Mishnah. Lo tisyachid isha imam. So remember again, what did the Mishnah say? That a woman is not permitted to be alone with an akum. There's an isra yichud. So, well, I shouldn't say that. Before we'll define what it means. But the Mishnah said a woman is not permitted to be alone with an akum. So ma'askinon. We'll say, so what's the case? Ilema bechad. If you want to say we're talking about one woman and one akum, dekavase gabi yisra mishari. We'll say such an arrangement is usher with a Jew. In other words, a Jewish man or I should say a Jewish woman, is also not permitted to be alone with a Jewish man. So that would not be a novel ruling. Ultimately, again, by an akum, meaning at the end of the day, there's an Isser Yichud with a Jewish man as well. So the Gemara says, V'hatran, we learned, Rabbi say, Lo yisyachid ish echad im shtei noshim. Ultimately, again, one man is not permitted to be alone with two women. So Rabbi say, it goes without saying that there's an Isser Yichud, one man and two women. One man and one woman. But there's also an Isser Yichud, one man and two women as well. So we'll say, so therefore it can't be that the Mishnah says that a woman should not be alone with an akum. It can't be that it's talking about one man and one woman, because that's usher even by a Jew. Amud Beis, Rabbi say, Amud Beis, Ella bitlasa. Rather, you have to say, what is it referring to? It's referring to a group of three. So Rabbi say, listen to this. Look at Rashi. Ella bitlasa, lahachi nakat tlasa, to be Yisrael tlasa sharu, bein ba'ir, bein baderach. About trey ba'ir, so we'll say maybe it's about a group of three. That a group of three, we'll say by Yisrael, does not pose an Isser Yichud, but ultimately again, by an Akum would pose an Isser Yichud. So we'll say maybe what it's saying is that ultimately again, there's an Isser Yichud, one man and one woman. There's an Isser Yichud, one man and two women. There's no Isser Yichud, one man and three women. So maybe Rabbi will say that's what it's saying, that even in that situation where there is no Isser Yichud by a Jew, there would be an Isser Yichud by an Akum, to which the Gemara says, it's not sure, we'll say, you could even find the case ultimately again by a Yisrael where one man and three women would also be Asr, I will say, or vice versa, by the way. 3 men and 1 woman could also be Asr. Where I will say, where? By Prutzim. I will say, this is an amazing idea. The laws of Yichud, I will say, are put in place in order to avoid the possibility of any type of illicit activity. Those Gidarim only work when you're speaking about who? Normal people. But if you're speaking about ridiculously immoral people, right, what we call prutzim, so Rabbi say again, then all bets are off, and the Isser will apply even to larger groups. The Gemara says, for example, these numbers that we have: 1 man, 1 woman, Asr; 1 man, 2 women, Asr; 1 man, 3 women, mutter. Who's that? So I will say it's mutter when you're dealing with individuals who we know to be moral individuals. But if you're dealing with prutzim, people who are known to be exceptionally immoral, so we'll say even these larger groups will be usher. We'll say, listen to this. After all, what did we learn? Lo shan ela b'ksherim. So the Gemara says, "Va'amrav Yudah Amar Shmuel lo shan ela b'ksherim." All right. Aval beprutzim. But we'll say if you're dealing with prutzim, afilu asara namilo. We'll say even a group of 10 will be usher. We'll say, how do we know this from? So the Gemara says, Ma'isa haya. We'll say this is wild. There was once an episode. We'll say, by the way, Ma'isa haya doesn't mean like a rebisha Ma'isa that somebody heard, right? Ma'isa haya means what? This happened. We'll say, what happened? Ma'isa haya v'otziu asara b'mita. We'll say there was once a story where a group of men wanted to commit an act of immorality with a woman. She was willing as well. What did they do? She faked her death. And remember, cemeteries were often outside of the city. So she faked her death. They carried her, quote unquote, her aron outside of the city in order to commit an act of immorality. So we'll say there was once, and this was 10 people. This was because you need a minion. I mean, everybody needs a minion, right? So what happened? So there was a minion of people. First of all, again, you have to admire the resolve. I'm just saying the resolve, and also remember you have to pay 11 cents. There's like a whole thing involved over here. So just saying. So we'll say. So the point over here I will say is as follows. The point over here the Gemara is saying, and I will say this is an incredible yisod. In general, Gidarim in halacha were structured for who? Regular people mentioned, right? We're structured for regular people. You cannot legislate Gidarim for the outliers, right? The outliers are going to do whatever they want, however they want, regardless of the system. So the Gemara just pointed to us, so we're trying to figure out over here, the laws of Yichud as we have it, ultimately, again, govern normal behavioral activity. The laws of Yichud presuppose that what? Yes, people will do things wrong. And we're saying, the halacha also understands that give people the opportunity for morality and what? They will take it. I will say that is human nature. present people with the opportunity, and 9 out of 10 times they will take the opportunity. Not because we're bad, but because at the end of the day we are human beings. So what the halacha says is, however, is that most people will only sin in private. Most people will only sin when no one else will know. So all you need to do is prevent the situation of privacy from occurring. In other words, so go ahead and assur private situations, and you will hopefully head off most immoral acts at the pass. Create a larger group setting, and ultimately you will prevent immorality. That only works for normal people. If people are exceptionally immoral, the group setting will not dissuade them from sinning. So we're still trying to figure out what is the isser ultimately again with the akum. So says the Gemara, Lo tzricha bi'ishto imo. We'll say, watch this. Under normal circumstances, Rabbi say, there is an interesting exception to any issues of yichud, which is ishto imo. We'll say if one's wife is with him, so there is no potential issue of yichud. Why? So the Gemara says, ishto imo, oved kochavim ein ishto mishamarto. We'll say, bain akum, we don't assume that his wife is going to stop him from engaging in immorality. Aval Yisrael ishto mishamarto. But ultimately, again, when it comes ultimately again to Yisrael, his wife guards it. So we'll say, what does that tell me? What that tells me is as follows: there is an isur yichud of one man with 2 women. There's an isur yichud. However, if one of those women is my wife, then what? There is no isur yichud. That only applies ultimately to a Jew. Does not apply to an akum. Why does it apply to a Jew? Because the assumption is, even if I want to do something immoral, my wife is going to stop me from doing that, right? But by an akum, Rabbi say, Rashi points out that by the akum, Rabbi say, remember again, this is operating from a model of incredible societal systemic depravity by the akum community, which is what Chazal were observing. So by an akum, Rabbi say, his wife is not going to stop him from engaging in immorality. Why? Because if he does it, she could do it as well, and therefore again, even if his wife is with him, that does not stop her from immorality. Which Shabbos means what? Which at the end of the day means that a Jewish woman cannot be alone with an akum and his wife, whereas normal circumstances, if my wife is with me by a Jewish situation, there's no isur yichud. By an akum it doesn't apply. So we'll say, why is there not an issue of shvichus damim? Or take a step back. Maybe when the Mishnah said that a woman can't be alone with an akum, Rabbi say it's nothing to do with morality or immorality, but rather what does it have to do with? Shvichus damim, a concern that maybe he's going to kill her. To which the Gemara said, the Gemara gives 2 answers. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, we're dealing with an important woman. Demir semine. Rabbi say the akum is afraid of her. The akum is not going to kill her because she has. Rabbi say Rashi points out the interesting definition of isha chashuva. Rashi says over here that there could be chashuva bein ha'anoshim, chashuva bein ha'anoshim. Which I will say, so Rashi understands chashuva usually means 2 things. Number 1, she's attractive, and number 2, she's politically connected. Rashi normally understands that part of her political connections is her attraction, is her beauty. Again, we'll see the nafkamina between the 2 in a little bit, but the idea is over here, we're talking about Isha Chashuva. Isha Chashuva does not have to be worried about being killed by the akum. Why not? Because again, since she's connected, he's going to be afraid to do anything to her. So therefore, Abba say, because you're an Isha Chashuva, the issue in the Mishnah is not one of Shvichos Damim. The issue in the Mishnah is one of Gilei Arayos. Rav Idi Amar Isha Klei Zaina Allah. So Rav Idi says something very interesting. Rav Idi says that a woman does not have to be concerned about being killed by the akum. Why? Literally, her weapons are with her. We'll say, what does that mean? That at the end of the day, even if the akum wants to kill her, there will be something that he wants more than to kill her, which is to violate her. So as such, again, Klei Zaina Allah is the expression ultimately again, where she has the ability to save her life ultimately again by submitting to him. Now, leaving aside the other potential halachic issues involved in that, the point that we'll say that Rav Idi is making is her being alone with an akum is not a din of sakanas nefashos. Why? Because at the end of the day, he would rather violate her than kill her. So as such, again, it doesn't pose a sakanas nefashos. It poses other sakanos to her, but not sakanas nefashos. Ma'ay ben Abba said, what's the practical difference between these 2 opinions? Ikabenayu isha chashuva bein ha'anoshim, v'she'ina chashuva bein ha'anoshim. The practical difference, Rabbi say, would be with a woman, literally, who is important amongst men, but not important amongst women. Which Rabbi says is another way of saying she's politically connected, but not attractive. politically connected but not attracted. So we'll say that would be the nafkamina ultimately, again, between the opinions of Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rav Idi. We'll say, if you take a look at Rashi, Rashi says over here, Ika benayu, it's like the second to last of the short lines in Rashi. Ika benayu chashuv ben anashim. So krova the malchus, she's close to the monarchy. Ve'ina chashuv ben anashim. Ina yafa. Ultimately, she's not attractive. Rabbi Yirmiyah demuki la beisha chashuv demasha chashuv ben anashim. The krova the malchusi velo katli ala mishum arayis ika lemechash. So we'll say, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, in this case, we're not concerned he's going to kill her, but we are concerned ultimately again for arayis. So the Gemara says, so we'll say, so okay, we're not going to go through the whole Rashi over here, but the point the Gemara is making over here is that be the nafkamina case. The nafkamina between Rav Idi and Rabbi Yirmiyah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Rabbi, thank you. Rabbi Idi and Rabbi Yirmiyah will say ultimately again will be the case where she's chashuva ben anashim velo chashuva ben ha'anashim. Okay, so the Gemara goes weiter. Tanya kavasi Davidi barabin. Rabbi have a brayse that says Davidi barabin. Ha'isha afapisha shalom ima lo tisyachid imahem. So we'll say, so Davidi barabin says a woman afapisha shalom ima. Rabbi say this is an interesting idea. Even though peace is with her. We'll say, what does this mean? Peace is with her. Ultimately, again, Rashi says, "Afabisha shalom ima devade lo yargua dak li zaina let lo tisyachid iman." So I'll say, even though again, shalom ima ultimately means even though we're not concerned that they're going to kill her, nevertheless, lo tisyachid iman mipnei shechashudin al ha'arayos. Ultimately, again, because we are concerned that she may be violated. So Rabbi say, so bottom line, what it comes down to is as follows. That halacha lemaisa, the isser over here of a woman being alone with an akum takes on a variety of different forms. If she's not an isha chashuva, in enachinami, the issue involved could be what? Could be that halacha lemaisa, there could be an issue of shichos damim. But Rabbi say, even if there is no issue of shichos damim, there's going to be a concern out to the fact that he may violate her. Therefore, the Mishnah paskins that a woman may not be alone with an akum. Now, isn't there an isser yichud all the time? So the answer is yes. But what is coming to add is that even in situations whereby a Jew, there would not be an isser yichud, like for an example of where again a man is with his wife. There is no isser yichud for a second woman to join them. There is no isser. That situation would be an isser yichud ultimately again by the akum. Fine. So we'll say, Lo Yisachid Adon Imad. Now the Mishnah goes on to say that the truth is even a man should not be alone with an akum. So we'll say the Gemara gives some interesting protocol here for behavior with an akum. We'll say if the Yisrael is walking with an Ovid Kochav on the road, Toflo Lo Yimino. You should always go ahead and keep the akum on your right side. Right? So we'll say the Gemara says, Toflo Yimino. Now, the interesting part, what does it sound like? It sounds like over here, because if something happens, if he attacks me, he should be on my right side, ultimately, again, where I could restrain him. So the Gemara says, well, it depends. Rabbi Shua Binosh Rabbi Yochanan ben Roko Omer, B'sayif toflo lo yimino. If he's carrying a sword, I should keep him on my right side. B'makel toflo lismolo. If he's on my left, if he's carrying a makel, then what Rabbi say? I should keep him on my left side. The idea being that I can then block the makel with my left hand and what? Use my right hand to fight back. I just want to point out something amazing. So just so you understand what Jews were living in. So we'll say, this is not like Chazal taking some anti-akum stance. Right? This is not Chazal trying to go ahead and put the Gentile nations down. This is reflecting realities. This is reflecting, I've been commenting, my uncle Zichron Livracha, his father, Zichron Livracha, used to make a Sudas Hoda every year on the second day of Chalamayid Pesach. Why? Because they'll say when he was a kid, this was in pre-war Poland, when he was a kid, so one day he was playing outside, and some Polish, I have many words, but some Polish Gentiles picked him up, he was a 4-year-old child, and threw him into a well. Picked him up, threw him into a well. Picked him up, threw him into a well. And Mamish, it was a nace that he survived. Saying, so, and again, I just want to point out, this was, 80, 90, this was 80 years ago, 90 years ago. So again, understand, we live in such dramatically different times. It's such dramatically different times, Baruch Hashem. But understand, like, this was the way the Jew lived for 2,000 years, I will say. That ultimately, again, he often was at the whim of the Yaakov. So you can pick up a 4-year-old child, throw him in a well, and there's no repercussions for it. So Chazal are telling you, okay, we're telling you ultimately, again, what you should do. You're walking with an Akum, keep him on your right. He has a sword, keep him on your right. He's carrying a staff, keep him on your left. Why? Because you must always live with a watchful eye. The truth is, the Jew in the diaspora must always live with a watchful eye. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Jew in Eretz Yisrael also has to live with a watchful eye, but at least there it's home territory. At least there we're on our own turf. So the Gemara goes weiter. Hayoolin b'mala. If let's say again I'm walking with an akum and we're walking up an ascent. Oh Yordan b'yerida. We're walking up a mountain, down a mountain. Here's the cloud. Lo yehei Yisrael lamata. The Jew should never be on the decline below the Gentiles. So if I'm walking down, I should walk behind him. If I'm walking up, I should walk behind him. So the Gemara says, so we'll say, what are we concerned about? Again, we're being concerned about being pushed down. So the idea is never walk behind the Gentile, or never walk in a way where the Gentile has the height advantage over you, and Chas V'Shalom could push you down. Don't bend down in front of him. Shema Yorotz es Gulgalto. We'll say, it's such dramatic lashon, because he may smash your skull. Or don't tie your shoe. Don't tie your shoe, because he may take advantage ultimately and crush your skull. Shalu, listen to this. If the Akum asks you, where are you going? Yarchiv lo asaderech. I will say what you should do is, never say exactly where you're going, but rather say you're going farther than you're actually going. In other words, I will say, if I'm going to point A, say that I'm really going farther to point B. What's the logic? Because I will say this way again, I could kind of turn off the highway quickly before the Akum knows what's going on. Because maybe he was plotting to do something to me, right? And he's going to do it to me later. If he thinks he has time, if I go ahead and I turn off earlier, I'll save myself. In a way, where do we get this from? We got this from the way that Yaakov went in and conducted himself with Esav. Dichsiv ad asher avo el adoni seira. Because remember again, what does Yaakov say to Esav? Yaakov says to Esav, ultimately, I'm going to Seir. Dichsiv Yaakov nasa sukosa. But in reality, that's not what happened, right? Yaakov only went to Sukkos, which was closer. But at the end of the day, he told Esav that he was going to Seir. So listen to this. So one time, ultimately again, Rabbi Akiva was I think I'm gonna record the Parsha Shir a little bit later, right after davening. I'm just gonna get you to the end of this sugya. So I will say one time I said, Rabbi Akiva one time I'm gonna help out Yehuda for tomorrow morning a little bit. I'm just gonna get to the Mishnah. So I said Rabbi Akiva so I'll say so one time ultimately the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva were going to Ksiv, Pagu Bahem listim. So we'll say so the armed robbers encountered them. Hey, where are you guys going? Right, maybe where you guys headed. So we'll say these are listim. We'll say I just want to point out because you have to be careful with the words. Who are listim? Listim are armed bandits. Listim are the guys you never want to run into. Why? Because they fear no one. They fear no one. They will attack at any time. So the students of Rabbi Akiva ran into a group of listim, and the listim asked them, "Hey, where are you guys headed?" So the students say, So Amru Lahan La'ako. So okay, we'll say they're going to Ksiv, but they tell listim they're going to Akko. Kevan Shigil Ksiv Perishu. Once they got to Ksiv, they turned off the road. So Amru Lahem Talmidim Miatem. So I will say the bandits, the listim realized that's what. You see, I will say the chap with listim is listim won't attack in a city. Where do listim attack? Listim attack on the roads. So now they realize that they were bested by the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. And what happens? So because they got off the road earlier at Ksiv instead of Akko, they asked, "No, who's your Rebbe? Who's your Rebbe?" Amr lahen Talmidi Rabbi Akiva. He said, "Rabbi Akiva is our Rebbe." So listen to what the listim said. Amr lahem Ashrei Rabbi Akiva v'Talmidav shelapaga bahen Adam Rame Olav. So we'll say, you hear this? The listim say, "Oh, what a Rebbe you have, right? What a Rebbe you have, Rabbi Akiva. You have one smart rabbi. You have one smart Rebbe, right? Asher Rabbi Akiva, praiseworthy is Rabbi Akiva, for neither he nor his students were ever harmed." So we'll say, so it says, of course, the dramatic irony of that statement. Rabbi Akiva meets with the most bitter end. His Talmidim meet with the most bitter end, but they were obviously praising the wisdom of Rabbi Akiva. We'll say weiter. So Rabbi Menashe Ozil, we'll say top of Chavav, LeBeit Tursa. So we'll say Rabbi Menashe was going to Beit Tursa, Paga Beit Ganvi, a group of Ganavim. Now we'll say, remember again, Ganavim are bad guys also. But Ganovim generally, again, are not as bad as Listim. So, but nevertheless, again, it's easy for me to say. I'm sitting here, right? Don't worry about it. Not so bad. So what happens? So Rav Menashe is going on his way to Beit Tursi, and he meets a group of Ganovim. Amru leila anaka azlis. Where are you going? Amru leila Pumbedisa. Because we're going to Pumbedisa. So we'll say this episode is happening in Bavel. Kimatla Beit Tursa Parish. When he gets to Beit Tursa, Rav Menashe gets off the road. The Ganovim realize what happened. Amru leila Talmida di Yehuda Rama'at. So we'll say, so apparently these Ganovim knew that Rav Menashe was a Talmid of Rabbi Yehuda. So they said, oh, you're a Talmid of the deceitful Yehuda. In other words, they both say, well, this is amazing. The Ganovim are giving Rav Menashe Musar. What's the Musar? You're a liar. You're a liar. You told us that you were going to Pumbedisa, but in reality you got off at Beit Tursa. Your Rebbe's a liar. You must be right. You must learn this deceit. Can you imagine this? You're getting Musa from the Ganovim that he lied about his destination. So Amr Lahu, so Menashe says, Yadi Isu do you know my Rebbe that you could speak such deceitful things about him? You should all be excommunicated. So Menashe excommunicates the Ganovim. Azlu avde genefta esin v'tartin shnevalo atzluchu. But so what happens as a result of the Shamda, as a result of the excommunication, the curse, for 22 years they were unsuccessful Ganovim. Rabbi say they tried for another 2.5 decades to try to be good Ganovim, and not one Genevidik venture paid out. They realized, Rabbi say, that's what? Kevan dechazu asur kulu tavu shamtayu. Rabbi say, here's the amazing part. Mikamcha Yisrael. The Ganovim realized that the reason they were not being matzliach in their Genevikite was why? Because of the curse of Rav Menashe. So what happens? They go ahead and they go back to Rav Menashe to be released from the Shamta. There was one weaver amongst them, the group of thieves, who was too arrogant. He would not go to ask to be released from the Shamta. So Achle Aryeh, and he was eaten by a lion. Okay, Hainu Dami Inshi. So both said this gave rise to a popular adage. Insha Girdana Delotaizin Shasa Batsir Mishane. That ultimately, again, there is so if you look at Rashi says over here, Gardan Delotaizin, Anav Stam Garzan. So both say, literally the way it translates is, Girdana Delotaizin Shasa Batsir Mishane. The arrogant weaver, or the weaver who is not humble, suffers a diminution of his years. So both say the idea is apparently weavers were also known to be arrogant individuals for whatever the reason. So the mice again. So all the other Ganovim will say after 22 years of unsuccessful thievery, realized that their lack of success was because of the Shamta of Rav Menashe. Go to petition to have the Shamta reversed. But at the end of the day, this one weaver would not go. And I will say what happens as a result, because he would not go to ask to be released from the Shamta, he died early, was devoured by a lion. I will say, listen to how the sugya ends, and this is amazing. Tachazi ma ben Ganovi Bavel v'listin deretz Yisrael. They both say, come and see the difference between the Ganovim of Bavel and the listim of Eretz Yisrael. See, they both say, the listim of Eretz Yisrael. They both say, again, I can't say enough. They both say, the listim are the worst of the worst. The listim are the worst. These are the armed robbers. These guys will mamish kill you for your wallet. They fear no one. They rob in broad daylight. But yet, look at the difference between the listim of Eretz Yisrael and the Ganovim of Chutz La'aretz. Say, the worst of Eretz Yisrael, when they're bested, what do they say? Ashrei Rabbi Akiva, right? So what was the lashon? Ashrei Rabbi Akiva v'talmidav shlopaga b'hem adam rami olam. They both say the listim of Eretz Yisrael, at least they can recognize kedusha. The listim of Eretz Yisrael, even though themselves, unfortunately, are part of a depraved lifestyle, but at least again they have a compass. And even though they don't live lives of kedusha, they at least recognize kedusha when they see it. The listim of Bavel, the listim of Chutz La'aretz, say, again, not only are they bad, but they can't even seek out any kedusha. We'll say ultimately the Gemara ending off by telling us about the incredible profundity of Eretz Yisrael. We'll say sometimes, Nebuch, when we think about Eretz Yisrael, so again, like we saw in the news this week, sometimes all that comes out is negativity. Sometimes all that comes out is heartbreak. Rabbi say, understand the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael is so incredibly intense, and the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael is a palpable Kedusha. So palpable, Rabbi saying, that it permeates even the hardest of souls, that it permeates even the hardest of hearts, that even those who choose not to live a life of Kedusha, even those who choose to go a different derech in life, cannot help but be impacted and be affected by the Kedusha of the land. Even the listim of Eretz Yisrael, Abosai, who are not living a life of Kedusha, that's putting it mildly, even the listim of Eretz Yisrael, who are not subscribing to the spirituality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu or Torah, even those individuals can't help but be impacted by the Kedusha, right? So when we say Avira Eretz Yisrael Machkim, that the air of the Eretz Yisrael, the very air, the oxygen of Eretz Yisrael makes one wise. So both say not everybody chooses to internalize that wisdom, but at least it's there. And when it's there, it changes you in ways that you didn't even know. Better to be the listum of Eretz Yisrael than to be the Ganav of Bava. But I'll end off. Better than being the listum of Eretz Yisrael, of Eretz Yisrael and the Ganavim of Bava, there is a third alternative, which is don't be either of those, right? Better ultimately, again, to strive to be a tzaddik. And Abba said the incredible part about being a tzaddik is that a person can be a tzaddik ultimately wherever they are. A person could be a tzaddik in Bavel, a person could be a tzaddik in Eretz Yisrael. A person could choose to connect with the Rebbe Shalom in a meaningful way, in an uplifting way, no matter where they are. So I'll stop over here.